when we started this unit, when we started talking about what does it mean to have solutions, what does it mean to have roots and zeros, okay, we talked about some specific things. First off, when you have a graph that gives you a parabola, gives you that curve, that is a quadratic equation. I'm just reviewing some of the vocabulary. So the quadratic equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. When they ask for your solutions, when y is equal to 0, f of x equals 0 means y is equal to 0. They are asking you to find the roots. They're also called the zeros. More specifically, the x-intercepts. They also can be called solutions. And because I don't have enough room right here, it's horizontal intercepts. That's because if I draw a horizontal line, they're crossing the parabola in these two spots. Now, when it is y equals 0, all of these words can be used to represent these points. Okay? I need you to remember that x-intercepts are written with a number in the x spot, and the y number is 0. Okay? Some people are writing this backwards, but you have to know that x-intercepts have an x number in the number in the x spot. Now, if the equation is set equal to any real number, any other number like instead of equals 0, if f of x equals 4, so if y equals 4, you would draw your horizontal line at 4, and you would look and see where they intersect your parabola. Those points are called solutions and horizontal intercepts. You have to figure out what it is set equal to so that you know what you're looking for. But when it asks you what are the roots of a quadratic equation, they want the x-intercepts. Okay, now that was vocabulary that you have to know with what we're doing. Now what we're going to do is this. In the previous unit, we learned how to factor. Okay, and this is what I want you writing on the back of that sheet. We have an equation like this: x squared plus 7x plus 6, now watch what I'm doing, is equal to 0. Okay? Any of the quadratic equations have to be set equal to 0 before we can solve by factoring. This right here is called standard form. Standard form is when the quadratic equation is set equal to 0. See how it says equal 0? We'll talk more about that in a minute. We need to find the factored form. Factored form, we're going to go through and factor this. So let's think about our steps. I've got this part right here is what I'm going to factor. Step 1 when we were factoring was to factor out the GCF. Is there a GCF? No, because there's no number in front of the x squared. The second step we learned was to slide. You only slide if there's a number in front of the x squared. Again, there's not a number there, is there? Step 3 is to actually factor. So what that means is I put this in parentheses. I still put the equal 0 over there. Now, how does x squared split up? X and x. Now, when we were factoring, you take the factors of this last number. I need the factors of 6. Okay? And one of the things we talked about was getting in the calculator, which this should be an easier one, but let's go in here. You want the factors of 6 that do what? Add up to equal to 7. Yes. Let's see. All right. Come on, calculator. Now, so I told you, I'm just reminding, even though it's just 6, 6 divided by x. Now, this lists our factors, right? I need the factors that add up together to give me 7. I see it right off the bat. See, it's 1 and 6, right? So I go up here and I put plus 1 plus 6. Step 4 was to divide. But you only divide if you what? If you slide. We didn't slide anything. This right here, make sure you're paying attention, this right here is factored form. Okay? All right. Now, that's why we needed to know how to factor, because now we're going to take what each one of these is inside the parentheses, and we're going to set it equal to 0, and we're going to find our roots. So we do, what I mean is x plus 1 equals 0. X plus 6 equals 0. I take each one and set it equal to 0. If I subtract 1 from each side, I get x equals negative 1. On the next one, subtract 6 from each side. Okay, why I'm subtracting is this. I'm trying to solve for x because this is showing me, this is my x number, and the 0 is my y number. So this is telling me that my roots are negative 1, 0 and negative 6, 0. Meaning that if we go into the calculator and put in there, in y equals, we put in there x squared plus 7x plus 6, and we press graph, these numbers right here are where they cross the x-axis. Those are my roots. See, I have, now wait a minute, let's see, where'd it go? I'm supposed to be in the negatives. Guys, is 0, 6, is that a root? 0, 6? No, that's a y-intercept. Some of y'all got those wrongs on the, got those wrongs? Okay, got that problem wrong on the quiz yesterday. See how it says negative 1, 0 and negative 6, 0? Now, some people say, well, why in the world would we factor to find our roots if I can just put it in the calculator? Certain ones we can't just put in the calculator. So what if we try this one? Okay, so let's write down 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 equals 0. It's set equal to 0. This is what's called standard form. It has to be in standard form. The next thing we're going to do is find factored form. So in factored form, step 1, I need to factor it. I need to factor out the GCF. Is there a GCF? 2. Does 2 go into 7? No, there's no GCF, so I don't have to do that. Step 2 is to slide. Is there a number in front of the x squared? Yes. I'm going to take this number, slide it to the back. And when you're sliding, that actually means to multiply. So my new equation is going to be x squared plus 7x plus 6 equals 0. Step 3 is to factor. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to split up. X squared splits up as x and x. Again, I need the factors of 6 that add up together to give me 7, which we already found was 1 and 6. So I have plus 1 and plus 6. Now, some people say, well, they have the exact same roots now. No, they don't. What step have I forgotten? The divide. What number do I divide by? I divide by 2 because that is the number I slid. So I'm going to write divide by 2, divide by 2. This number here at the end, if it doesn't go in evenly, like 1 divided by 2, that gives you a decimal. You have to reduce this fraction as low as possible. This one is reduced, but you have to make sure that it is reduced or else it will not give you the right factors. I'm going to take 2 and put it in front of my x. It becomes 2x plus 1. Now the next one. X plus, what is 6 divided by 2? X plus 3 equals 0. This is factored form. Now, I still am trying to find my x-intercepts, which are also called zeros, which are also called roots. So you go 2x plus 1 equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. If I do the x plus 3, that one's easiest because I just subtract 3 from each side, right? And I get x equals negative 3. So it crosses at negative 3, 0. We're going to come back and talk about something in just a sec. On this other one over here, you would subtract 1 from each side. You get 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. X equals negative 1/2. So it's negative 1/2. 0 is where it crosses. These are my roots. These are my x-intercepts. Now let me ask you a question. What do you notice about this root and this factor? Are they the same numbers? Kind of, but one is what? One is positive, and the root is the opposite. It's negative, right? What about this? Like right here, I don't really know, but if I go up a little farther, look at this. What do you notice? See this bottom step right here, if you recognize this, you don't have to do this other step to find your roots. Let me go back a second. Look here. Here was my factor. These were my factors. Look at my roots. Do you see how they're tied in? That connection does work. My factor was positive 6. My root is negative 6. Factor is positive 1. Root is negative 1. They're the exact opposite number when it just has an x. Now, look right here. I couldn't use this down here. But when you did slide and divide, that gave it to you. If you don't get that, don't worry about it because we can still solve for it and find it. All right, let's look at another one. What if I gave you this? Hold on, I got to think. Darn, I should have had my problems in my head here. All right. The first thing I was doing is saying it had to be in standard form. Standard form meant it was set equal to 0. Does this say equals 0? How can I move this around to make it equal to 0? What do I need to move? Move the 12 to the other side. Can I just put it over there? I have to subtract 12 from each side. So I get 2x squared plus 10x minus 12 equals 0. Okay? This is standard form. It must be in standard form before you can do anything else. Now we need to factor it. Okay? Step 1 in factoring was what? GCF. Is there a GCF? Hello? Yes, a 2 goes into all of them. The GCF is 2, so I'm going to divide out a 2 out of each term. Do not leave that 2 off. Okay, I'm just going to put it out there in front. So I get x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Step 2 is to slide. You only slide if there's a number in front of the x squared. Is there a number? Right there. There's no number inside that parentheses because all we're factoring is what's inside here. So there's nothing to slide. So now I need to factor. Okay? I'm going to leave the 2 chilling on the outside. X squared splits up. X and X. I need the factors of negative 6. And what are they supposed to add up together to give me? 5. Okay, check this out. I can't remember if I did this in this class or not. If you go to y equals, and I understand that it's easier, but I want to make sure when we go through numbers. If you take negative 6 divided by x, we already know that gives us the factors, right? But if you do this in y2, negative 6 divided by x plus x, the first 2 columns are your factors. Y2 is what they add up together to be. What do I need this to add up together to be? 5. I already see it in the Y2 column. Anybody see it? Here it is. There's the 5. What numbers, if I add up these 2 numbers, 6, negative 1, and 6, what do I get? 5. So if you remember that, so what I did was you go into Y1, you put the number divided by x, and in Y2, you put the number divided by x plus x. What that is doing, let's see if I can move this down a little bit. I'll bring it back up. There we go. You have x, y1, y2. X and y1, these are your factors. This is what it adds up to be. Okay, so I would put those notes down so that you can look through and help you find your factors. Now, we found our factors to be 6 and negative 1. So I'm going to put plus 6 and minus 1. Did I slide anything? Nope, so I don't have to divide. I don't have to do that last step. So here is my factored form. Now, if it asks me for my solutions, it's asking me where does this cross the x-axis? What's the x-intercepts? You can either go x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0 and solve, or what's the opposite of plus 6? Negative 6, 0 is where it's going to touch. Opposite of negative 1, positive 1, 0. If you don't believe me, put that in the handy dandy calculator and press graph and it'll show you.